And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. And as we were discussing earlier, that name is still somewhat temporary. We're just calling it that for the time being because that is the name of the YouTube channel, abbreviated, that we're actually uploading this to for the time being. Figuring that eventually, as we go through these, kind of a theme or an idea will come out that just really suits it. But for the time being, that's what we're called. This is episode 2 of the complete podcast. We've done 3 test cases, 1 full episode now, which is up as of the time you're hearing this. Would have gone up the Saturday before you hear this. And yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, honestly, the numbering system is a flipping nightmare.
It is. That's something else that we need to work on, because right now I think episode 1, 2, and 3 are all test cases. The first full episode was actually episode 4, but then the segments are 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3.
Yeah, the first 3 were like alpha, and now we're in... Wait, are we in full release now? I suppose we are.
We are. Full release. The first full release. This is the second full release.
Yep. Part 1.
Yeah, exactly.
or if you're listening to it on Saturday, just the full episode 2.
Good God. Yeah, that's true. If you're listening to this on Monday, this is segment 1 of the second podcast. If you're listening to this on Saturday, then this is the complete second podcast. So without us rambling on too much more in the intro, I'm going to bring us right into topics, our first segment. And I have one that I thought it might only take us a little bit, but I think we could actually go on for quite a bit with this topic. And that's, the initial idea I had with it was, with the advent of digital downloads for games and things like that, there's become this kind of expectation that it'll be patched on the first day. And it's kind of something that people have begun to expect because these games do take vast amounts of time. But there's recently been a few cases of controversy because games are being patched not to fix glitches or to correct things, but being patched to actually change the game. And I'm not talking about live service games like Overwatch or League or things. Those are expected to change on a regular basis. But this is single player games, and they're modifying bits of the story and things like that after the game has been released.
So there's definitely, I think I see this more with indie games, where I've played through the game and I think, wow, that was a great game. They obviously need to fix some things, but because there's only one person creating it and they want to keep creating new stuff, they don't often spend the time to go back and fix the basic things that were broken, because it's still playable, but they have to devote their man hours to adding new content, because that's what the community is generally shouting for, as opposed to the smaller community who are getting kind of punked out of the gameplay because of something that may be game breaking or may just be irritating to look at.
I see what you're saying there. I'm thinking the thing that made me think of this. There was recently a bit of a controversy, and I won't go into what it actually was, but with the release of Halo ODST, because they've released Master Chief Collection on PC, and they're releasing each game kind of in bits, in chronological order.
So what's ODST stand for?
Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. They're essentially Marines from the Halo, Special Forces Marines from the Halo universe.
Yeah.
So called because they drop in these individual pods from orbit to make landfall on a planet.
They've got drop pods like from Warhammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that game, they actually were removing content from the game because of some other controversy. Again, I don't want to get into it on the podcast, but that's what made me think of this, because I could see why they removed the thing that they did, but it kind of opens the door. What's to stop? So, say, I'm gonna use an example. There's a PlayStation 2 game, say,
Hmm.
and you've downloaded it on the PlayStation Network onto the PlayStation 4, and you're playing it on there. You remember the old like single player experience, but maybe they don't like something that was done in the original game, and for either for creative reasons or cultural reasons, they either remove it or alter it altogether, changing dialogue, changing like
Right. Is this controversy about someone getting offended?
yes.
Okay,
But
right. Oh, I
but
don't need to go
that
into that then.
that was the reason why I first started thinking about this. But even from like a wider, like not just somebody getting offended, but it could be for creative reasons too. Like somebody has released this game, it's single player, and the studio that made the game, say 10 years down the line, it's now digital content. They don't sell the physical copies anymore. They decide that they didn't like something they did creatively in the game 10 years ago, and they decide to change it. Well, now
Okay.
the original version of the game is no longer available, and that's something that I didn't like the idea of.
Right. Yeah, well, they can't really put out two different versions of the game, one being like, have you downloaded the Snowflake edition or the classic?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I don't know what the problem is, so that could be very mean, and I apologize.
No, no, no.
But
That's perfectly, but that's reasonable. That was where my mind was going.
yeah, no, it's they have to appeal to the. I mean, the people who, such as yourself, who were not offended by it,
Hmm.
would not are not particularly offended by the fact that something has been taken out of the game. It's just a it's a very political view, and we shouldn't go into politics on this, but yeah, they're just appealing to the mass crowds.
Right. And but
They don't
my
want to get sued.
my problem with it is like there's a lot of old games that I own physical copies of that I really like. You know, the story, the gameplay, what have you,
Yeah.
like warts and all. But
Hmm.
what if, like in the future, and it doesn't have to be because someone got offended. It doesn't have to be for political reasons. It could be just they make a creative decision when they re-release the game that they want to do it differently. So now, unless you own that original physical copy, there is no way for you to play the game as it originally was. You just have to play through this new experience. Um, and I kind of thought
Yeah.
about it.
I
It
mean, you've
goes
got the original hard copy, so you can play it through anyway, can't you?
well, not this game. Well, yeah, yeah. If we're talking about Halo specifically, yeah. But I'm looking
Yeah.
at my Steam library. There's tons of games on there that physical copies don't even exist necessarily. And
Right.
so it's kind of at the Steam has the ability to go back to previous patches, which is nice.
Hmm.
But you can't do that on, say, the Xbox or the PlayStation. So if
Yeah.
you have these digital copies, and that was where my mind started with this idea, but then I started thinking, well, the same could technically be true for movies too, because more and more people aren't buying physical copies of movies, DVDs.
No.
They're buying digital copies on um, like Amazon, or they're watching them on Netflix, or they're downloading them off whatever Disney's platform is. Everybody has their own streaming platform now,
Yeah.
but in theory the same thing could happen there. And it doesn't have to be for somebody getting offended. It could be a creative decision, like Disney releases a new animated, one of their musical kind of
Oh.
movies, right?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
they for whatever reason 5 years down the line they're like, yeah, we didn't like this scene, so they do a new cut of it, and the old one just doesn't exist anymore. And so
Right.
my problem is, and maybe this is something that's kind of only a concern for me. I like seeing, like, if I've had, like, I'm a chronic rewatcher and rereader and replayer. Like, I go back to old movies, games, and books all the time,
Hmm.
and I think it annoys me. It worries me that that original experience that I like going back and re-experiencing just might be gone at the whim of somebody, like, outside my control.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does sometimes worry me a bit how some companies obviously take things harder than others. Like, a company might take something down because they think it's not PC enough, but then look at freaking Game of Thrones.
I haven't
They had
actually watched the series.
no, but like you've seen the first series, haven't you?
I saw the first two episodes, but I've read all of the books several times.
Right. Yeah. But the things they get away with on that, like, surely that means
Oh,
that we should be kind of pushing the boundaries, not drawing them back in.
but that's
Um,
HBO. Like HBO, if an HBO series doesn't have gratuitous like nudity and violence, then it's not HBO.
right. Okay. I don't really know what goes on HBO because I was over here. But yeah, what you were saying earlier about everything being bought online.
Hmm.
The city I live in used to have like two or three game shops. Game is the big computer game industry in this country.
Yeah.
Um, and just recently, I think the last one's just disappeared now because no one buys physical games anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm that one exception because I do. I if I
yeah,
can, so if I can, I always buy a physical copy because and the reason I do that is because of this is kind of where I'm leading to with this topic is that when you buy a digital copy, unless it's DRM free, you don't actually own it. Like it's essentially just leased to you because if
right.
like so I own that movie we've been trying to watch forever on Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
um,
Well, you can't
Passengers.
watch it.
Yeah, exactly. We can't watch it because fuck you, Amazon. You still black out your screen if you try to like watch a movie with friends. Um,
Still waiting on that Netflix sponsorship, by the way.
yeah, exactly. Come on, Netflix, hit us up. But essentially, if I own that movie Passengers on there, like I actually bought the digital edition. But if Amazon's servers ever shut down, I know it doesn't really seem that likely. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. But if they ever
Yeah.
if their servers ever shut down, if they decide yeah we're shuttering the Prime service because it just doesn't make us money anymore, all of that's gone. Like you just don't have that movie anymore.
Hmm.
So I'm essentially leasing it with the only security being that Amazon is promising they'll be around for the rest of my life for me to keep watching it.
Yeah, it's a bit. You don't really want to be relying on others for
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
It's the same thing with Steam. Like you've bought the games on there, they're all digital, but if Steam
I've
ever
played
shuts its
so
doors,
many games.
yeah, if Steam ever
Yeah.
shuts its doors, you don't have those games anymore.
Yeah, that is a worrying thought, but at the same time, it's so big. It's one of those things where you're like, the Titanic, it can't sink.
Yeah, it's too big to fail.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a slight worry, but at the same time, if I lost all my games tomorrow, yes, it would be disheartening. Yes, I would lose essentially a lot of money, but at the same time, these games I've had for like over 5 years, and I've kind of had my enjoyment of them. So if I did lose
Yeah.
them tomorrow, I'd be upset. I would not be in tears though.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of at the same spot where like if I think about how I would actually react, I would be very angry and very upset at the onset, but then after like a few minutes I'd be like, well, I guess I'll just go outside and enjoy the sunshine. And I
Are you
have
kidding me? I'll just be like, right, next platform to buy games from.
well, if it ever actually happened to Steam, I think I would swear off buying digital games in general, or be extremely cautious about it from that point on. That's why
Just wait for the free games from Epic Games instead.
yeah, they've been. I'm kind of curious what the hell their business model is because they've been
Right?
giving away some brand new like high tier games. When that stuff starts to happen, I get suspicious. Like, what are you planning, Epic?
Do they do Ubisoft games? Is that no? You played this Ubisoft.
Yeah, they've got their own
That's it,
platform.
Epic Games have some big franchise, don't they, supporting them?
Mm,
Or am I wrong? I don't know.
I mean, they're the ones that make Fortnite.
Right, yeah. Oh, the big fight between
Oh yeah, between
Fortnite and Apple.
actually, you know what?
Have
That's
we talked about this before?
no, we haven't. I think let's transition into that because I think we've exhausted this topic. Just one last point on that.
Go for it.
Shout out to because we were talking about it earlier with Jesse. Is the GOG good old games, grand old games, whatever the hell they're called. They they are one of the only platforms that when you buy games on their site, it's, excuse me, mostly it's DRM free, which digital rights management, for anyone that doesn't know that acronym. So if you buy a digital copy there, as long as you have the files of that game, you can essentially, even if their site goes down tomorrow, if you have the files for that game, you can put it on any computer that you own. So you don't need their servers to play the games. And I love that. So shout out to them, because they're doing things pretty well of the platforms out there.
Just took a look at the actual website, and it's got a bunch of stuff saying 90% off, and it looks like it's got The Witcher 90% off, which is very surprising. I'm confused.
It's actually owned by the people who make the Witcher games, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Because they're the ones making Cyberpunk 2077, that new game I'm excited about.
Right.
And they kind of put out just, I can't remember, it was on their Twitter or their website or something, and they're like, hey, if you buy it on GOG, if enough people pre-order it on GOG and pay up front, it's DRM free. If enough people do it, we'll add even more bonuses to the game, like legit new feature. Like essentially they were treating it like a Kickstarter, and a bunch of people did, and they added in stuff to the game. I really like that company. What the hell are they called? Red something? The people who, look it up. People who make The Witcher.
Right.
But yeah, that was the last point I wanted to say on this topic. But then we can move into what you were just saying there.
What was I saying again?
We were talking about the thing between Epic and Epic, Apple and
yes.
Epic. Yeah.
Apple and Epic Games. I've heard briefly about it. Something about Fortnite screwed over Apple, and so they started putting hates Apple stuff in their game.
It dates back. I've been following this since it started, because whenever these I don't know, slug matches between big companies happen, they're usually pretty entertaining. So what happened was Epic had their application, which allowed for purchases, like in-game purchases for Fortnite and a few of their other games, hosted on the Google Play Store and on Apple. And when people make purchases for their games on those sites, Apple or Google gets a cut of the money. So say somebody buys, like, I don't know what the fuck the currency is called in that, but they buy 1,000 points of Fortnite bucks, whatever the hell they are.
Yeah.
And it costs them $10. That means Apple or Google, whoever owns it, whatever platform it is, gets $3, and the rest goes to Epic. Now, Epic decided to be a little bit cheeky and put a link in their app that goes not to one of their payment processors, but a third-party payment processor that gave Epic a bigger cut. And you would get a bonus amount of whatever the in-game currency is. So Epic would get more money, and the players liked it because they would get a lower price.
Yeah, bonus.
Yeah. So say you get the 1,000, but now it's $9, but Epic gets 8 instead of 7. Apple didn't like this, so they banned all of Epic's content from the iTunes or the iStore, whatever the hell it's called. And Epic then responded by putting essentially like propaganda videos in Fortnite, just trashing Apple. They even did a tournament where they were giving away products for Apple's competitors for grand prizes, and giving away skins as runner-up prizes that were just mocking Apple.
Wow.
And I think at the
they
same,
should have had a rotten Apple costume that you could wear.
It's something like that, actually. I can't remember what it was called. It was the sad Apple skin or something, or bad Apple skin. I think that's what it was called.
Oh, or just Steve Jobs, the polo neck look.
I think that might go a little bit too far, though, because the guy's dead.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, but yeah.
I mean,
he is the front runner. He is what represents Apple.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's been kind of a row going on between them, lawsuits, and they also had, I believe, Microsoft kind of chimed in an official capacity and kind of endorsed Epic's side of the argument. And I'm not really sure why, but anyway, it's been just an absolute... you've watched this is gonna sound like a non sequitur. Believe me, it fits. You've watched like Monty Python, right? The
Yeah.
flying circus. There's a
No,
scene.
not that one. Not that one.
Okay, well it's a show. There's
Yeah.
a skit that they do in it where they say they're going to reenact some kind of historical event, and every single time, it's just a bunch of old ladies slapping each other with handbags in the mud.
Right.
Every single historical event they say they're going. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that is essentially what this is turned into. You've got Google
Yeah.
and Apple on one
Like,
side against Epic, and now Microsoft is chiming in and kind of on Epic's side.
yeah. I guess they're getting more business now that Apple's out.
I
The
think
eternal enemies.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Microsoft is just taking the opportunity to give some pot shots at Apple.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft and Apple are kind of like America and Russia during the Cold War.
We
They're
can-
fighting through other little countries.
That's actually, yeah, it's a bunch of proxy wars.
Yeah, just trying to spread communism. Or,
Yes, communism.
yeah.
It's always interesting when something like this happens because in a sense there's kind of a messed up element because in a sense Epic is propagandizing and bribing children.
Hmm.
But at the same time, those stores tend to have like, I mean, it's a 30% sounds like a big cut, but I'm pretty sure it's the industry standard for how much like those payment processors take off the top.
Right.
I think that's. I mean, I'm pretty sure Steam takes more than that when people sell games on their site. I think.
I have no idea. I don't. I'm a blind fool to these things. I just see a good deal and I go for it.
The yeah the financing and economic element to all of this is something that I find personally fascinating. I always like reading into it, but I feel like if we get into that here, we're just going to bore everyone that's listening. So that's really the top.
Returning to the whole.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say returning to the whole downloading thing there.
Mm.
One thing that I do, well, it's a boon and a curse. So, with these Steam games, not all of them are released as a hard copy. It feels like a gamble every time you buy a game of whether the company that made it are going to continue working on it or go to a new project.
Yeah,
And
that's no, go on.
Well, okay, I was gonna say that classic one that we've played quite a bit, Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a lot more progress on that done a lot quicker, and I ended up waiting so long that when they did come out with more stuff for it, it just didn't interest me anymore. It'd been too long, and yeah. But then other games that, in fact, indie games, again, I gotta stop bringing them up, with very much smaller groups of people who have released a lot more, a lot sooner. Whether that's because it's possibly like less art and things that have gone into it, or if it's because of multiplayer functionality takes a lot longer to implement. But I mean, how long did we wait for Golf with Your Friends to have?
The level editor.
Yeah, we waited literally years for that to come out, and by the time it did, we were so done with it. At least I was.
Yeah, for those that don't know listening, Golf with Your Friends is a mini golf like PC game, and we played the hell out of it when it first came out.
Yeah.
But the content coming out for it, so Steam has this thing called early release, and typically it's a game that's still in development, but they allow it's finished enough that Steam allows it to be put on their store, so as a way for the developer to gather money and continue funding the progress in the game. But what Blue's saying here, there's a varying degree of progress that gets made. Some, like Golf with Your Friends, they have this big plan, but then the content gets kind of drip fed out instead of it coming at a steady rate. And some games make good progress, and some games do that.
Yeah, and they said like not long after it was released that there was level editors coming soon, and that's why They gave us hope,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they tore it away from us, as opposed to just not mentioning it and saying no, no, no. Yes, we're now going to come out with it.
That
That would have been better.
that actually reminds me. So League of Legends, right? It's ever since the very, I think it was the second season of the game,
Mm.
which would have been 2011 or so. They were promising a replay feature, and it didn't come out for like they were like, oh yeah, it's going to be coming soon, and it didn't come out for like another 4 or 5 years. It may have actually been longer than that.
Right.
But it took quite a long time for it to actually show up, and that's again, it's not an indie game, which gives them less of an excuse. At least the indie developers can say, well, we only have 3 people working on this thing, and they have day jobs or something like that. They can go, okay,
Yeah.
it's maybe forgivable, but this is a big studio.
Yeah. The I think a company that's just done that fairly recently is Rainbow Six Siege. They've now got a if you see any of the competitive games nowadays, there's like a top-down view of the building where the roof is obviously vanished, and you
Oh,
can see everyone walking around, and it looks really cool.
that is actually really cool. I didn't realize they'd added that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I just dreamed it, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty sure that's the case.
Fact check us here.
Yeah, I don't know if you can report people posthumously through that feature because I
Oh
think
yeah,
did
you're
many
you
people
saying
cheat on that?
I mean, they do a pretty good job, like preventing people from hacking and cheating in that game. It seems like,
Yeah, I can't now. I think about it, I can't genuinely.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, I have seen the odd cheat, but as a rule, I've seen more cheats in Fall Guys, which I've only been playing for about a week now, than I've ever seen in Rainbow Six Siege, which I've been playing for years.
yeah, yeah. That's true. It's just I can't go back to how petty do you have to be to cheat at Fall Guys?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So this is like only just happened like an hour ago. Obviously you were there, Kaiser,
Oh yeah,
and we were like midway through a game. I was playing the football one where you have to kick it in the other person's goal. I suddenly realised that not just one, but 2 of my team of 5 were flying, and really obviously.
at least if you're
Uh,
gonna cheat, be a little more subtle about it.
and so I was just like, you know what? Heck no. Went on to the other team, tried to get own goals. There's no reporting system. I'm aggravated by that game right now. Sorry, I don't mean to raise my voice.
And again, but just I feel like I have to do this because I keep forgetting like we know what these things are, but not everyone listening necessarily does. Fall Guys being a very new like think like a party kind of game where there's a bunch of little mini games. You play as this tiny little wobbling figure who is constantly getting knocked over and can jump and dive, and that's about it. And so it
Yeah,
has all these
think of
contrived
Mario
games.
Party without the board, so it's just mini games, and instead of a recognizable character like Mario, you're just a bean.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
A
it's very
bean,
colourful, great for kids.
yeah, yeah, a bean with a bunch of random optional hats and pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Oh, do they have a sombrero? I would love a sombrero. On
there
that.
probably
Sorry.
is a sombrero. We're coming up on the end of this segment. I just want to bring it back to the original topic for one last point because we talked about mostly about games, a bit about movies, and this whole like digital download thing. But I think one other thing that maybe is kind of neglected today is books. I mean,
Mm.
Kindle and Audible basically have very close to a monopoly on the digital book and audiobook market. So
Yeah.
if for whatever reason Amazon decides, we don't want this book on our platform, or this book needs to be, edited in such and such a way to be on our
Be
platform,
surprised if they ever did that though, because
They
if
have.
you've seen some of the books that are on there,
they have actually done it.
really, what, like the Communist Manifesto or something?
No, that's on there.
No, well, that's okay then.
Yeah, no, they like that guy. No, but if you go back to I can't remember, this was back in 2018 or 2017, so I don't remember what book it was. But there was this big controversy because it was a politician in Europe had put up a book, and he had some, let's say, questionable politics, but at least maybe it's because it was Europe and not the U.S., but like the guy has a right to put up whatever he wants. He wants to write a book, he can write a book. Go for it. And the idea of, in the same way as Steam and Disney or Netflix or Amazon making kind of unilateral decisions to have or not have certain movies or games or whatever go up there, or have some level of control over what's in those movies or games.
Yeah.
It's worrying that you have something like Amazon, which has that ability to kind of essentially just come down from the mountain on high and say, you will not put your book on our platform.
Yeah.
It's not technically a violation of anything, because there are other platforms, but they have sort of a soft monopoly.
Yeah, it's always like, do you, like, to take it to an extreme, if the KKK would put a book on Audible, I could understand why people would want it taken down.
Right.
If you take that down, you've got to take a whole bunch of other things down.
Right. There's a lot of...
And you have to decide where the line is.
Exactly. And if you go back to, like... If you go back far enough, there are definitely historical books that are, have reprehensible content. But you really... If you don't like it being on the platform, just give it a 1-star review. Don't buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, but they have. Oh. So I sound frustrated, but at the time it was gosh darn hilarious. I laughed my ass off. They have like romance novels, right?
Oh yeah.
Where it's like dinosaur romance, and I'm like, what? Like, I was watching a YouTube video and someone was like, look at this weird shit that you can get on Audible, and I was like, that can't be real.
Oh my
There's
God.
Series upon series upon series of like dinosaur romance, werewolf romance. I can understand a bit more because of like Twilight and stuff. It's still weird to me.
Oh my God.
Like, what? And they're really like, you know what I mean by a B movie, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like punny, dinosaur pun romance novels with B movie kind of images on the front, and I'm like, oh my God. Why is this up here when some classic books that I've wanted
aren't
listen to aren't? Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's, I don't know how a book gets put up on here. Does it have to be the original writer that goes to Audible and says, I want my book up here, or is it?
Oh my God.
I don't know. I assume so.
I just got an idea for a future segment 3.
Based on dinosaur romance? I hope not.
I'm thinking maybe we we both listen to a segment of some really shitty audiobook.
Oh my God.
And then talk about
that
it.
sounds fun.
It doesn't necessarily have to be dinosaur romance, but something that neither of us would ever normally listen to.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear some opinions from this anyway, so if anyone does have an opinion and they around us, then give us a shout.
Alright, so let's wrap up the first segment there. We're actually close to our target time here. We're at 33 minutes.
Excellent.
But yeah, so
wow, that's like the closest we've ever come.
I know. Normally we look and it's like, holy crap, we're at 40 minutes and we weren't even thinking about it.
Now we just have to STFU and get out.
Yeah. So just to do a quick outro, thank you for listening. If you're listening on Monday, this is going to be segment 1, and this will be where the podcast ends. But if you're listening on Saturday, then there'll be a brief intermission, and you'll hear us once again. Thank you for listening, and we'll either see you in a few days or in a few minutes. And we are back. Welcome to segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast, where we talk about media. Media meaning books, movies, games, and we haven't talked about it yet, but potentially even music. If you are listening to this during the week, it is either a Wednesday, a Thursday, or a Friday, because this will be released on Wednesday. But if you're listening to the full podcast that is released on Saturday, then you will have just heard us moments ago finishing up our discussion about topics. Yeah, so with that, I think the very first thing we should talk about is a movie that we just saw recently, although it is an older movie, is Blues Brothers.
Yep. It was my choice well, I say this week. We cut into two because it was the extended cut on Netflix, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, it was something like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah. Normally it's significantly shorter. I think more succinct. I think short of it. I kind of prefer the abridged version of films quite often.
Yeah, I mean,
with it.
Go on.
Go on. Okay. I was just gonna say with books, I generally prefer the unabridged. I like to hear absolutely everything, but with movies, I think abridged is better.
I'm kind of mostly on the same line. I think it depends. Books, I agree with you 100%. Especially audiobooks, I'm always trying to make sure it isn't the abridged audiobook because I want to hear the whole thing. I want to read the whole story. But with movies, I think, yeah, sometimes it does kind of tend to drag a little bit. Things were cut for a reason.
Because with a movie, you're trying to finish it all in one sitting generally, whereas with a book, you could come back to it 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there are other things. There's a TV show that I saw recently, which I do want to talk about a little bit later, but I don't want to jump into it now because I want to talk about Blues Brothers first. But the first episode is split into 3 parts in the initial release, but with the Blu-ray, they released the first episode as one continuous movie essentially, but with extended scenes. And I feel like the scenes that they cut out, that they added back in that extended cut, actually did a lot to add to character development and to furthering the plot.
Sorry, with what?
The extended cut
of.
Oh, I'm not talking. I'll bring it up in a little bit. I said I wanted to talk.
Okay,
it's a TV
right.
show. I want to talk about it after we talk about Blues Brothers.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Blues Brothers. What are your thoughts on the movie? You've obviously seen it before.
So I saw it when I was very young. My dad was a big fan of it, and we had the cassette player for the car. Had all the songs on it. And I've kind of always liked blues generally as well, but I think it was a big part of the reason that I liked blues growing up was because they went 100% on every scene, as in they certainly put in the money. I thought the acting was really good, and it's just a cool movie.
I mean,
growing up, I was I'm so Elwood in this.
Yeah, there's they definitely had the money on the table for 1980. They had an all-star cast.
Yeah.
God.
Go on.
Well, I was thinking they got Dan Aykroyd. There were several scenes in the movie where I'm watching through and I'm like, there was a guy who owned a blind guy that owned a music shop, and it was called Ray's Instruments or something like that. And I'm like, that guy looks a lot like Ray Charles, and it actually was Ray Charles. They got Ray Charles in the movie. And there was that woman in the diner.
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha, yeah, exactly. And it actually was her. I was like, I know that song, and she looks kind of like her. And then, nope, it was actually her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite scene. The song in the Soul Cafe.
Yeah.
And also the lead up to it with the whole, I want a slice of bread with nothing on it and 3 roast chickens. Was it 3 roast chickens?
It was 4 roast. It was 4 whole fried chickens and a Coke.
And a Coke. Yeah.
Would have been funnier if it was a Diet Coke.
If you think, God, no, get out of here. This was
I know.
Before Diet Coke, maybe? I don't know. When did Diet Coke came out?
That is a good question. Talk about the movie for a second. I'll actually look it up.
Okay, yeah. The as I told Kaiser beforehand, before we watched the movie, as far as I'm concerned, there is no second movie to it, and anyone who's seen the second film will understand what I mean by that. It is It's bad. They redo a lot of the exact same scenes. It's like the diner scene, for example, the one that we were just talking about
Yeah.
in the Blues Brothers 2000, which only has one of the Blues Brothers for a
Yeah.
start.
Because as we
And
found out, the other one died like 3 years after the movie.
yeah, after the first movie. But yeah, the diner scene, they have to get him again back into the band, right? And so he's with his wife still, except they own a car dealership. And they might have even done the exact same song as in the diner. It was so lazily done. And it didn't even have like the whole. So they were in a very. Oh, how can I say this without sounding?
Just
They were
lay it out. Go
in
for
a
it.
soul cafe originally, which is like that's all about the music. It's all about soul music, soul food. It kind of goes together.
Yeah.
Now they work in a car dealership.
Ah, yes, the Soul car dealership.
The least soul kind of stuff that like it's so polished and fancy. It's like why, even if you love playing the music, why would you leave that kind of thing?
Yeah.
The Soul Cafe was homely. It was a good part of the story because they were going. It was like I don't want to say rags to riches because they weren't getting rich. It was
No.
enjoying his life, but that was just one of the many things that just did not work.
But well, how do I put this? It like contributed to the jazz atmosphere, the blues atmosphere, because you had the band out on the street, the kids playing around, out in the street. There was like a block party going on, and then they go down into the diner, and you can still hear kind of the muted sounds of all the festivities out in the street. It really had that atmosphere with it. It contributes to like that blues feel, but
Yeah.
you can't really that atmosphere does not scream car dealership.
No, it really doesn't.
I did look this up, by the way. You were right. Diet Coke came out in 1982.
Right. So when was the
The movie
Blues
the movie was
released?
1980. So 2 years after this
Oh,
movie,
okay.
Diet Coke came out.
God damn it. Yeah, no, Diet Coke, what are you on about?
It's an old joke, and I can't remember what it's from. Like it's an old joke from. I know it from a TV show that came out in the 90s, but I think it actually it may predate that, or it may come from something else. But people will sit down and they'll get like I'll have a steak, medium rare, potato, vegetables, fries, and a Diet Coke, and people will look at the
Yeah,
person like,
okay, yeah.
what's wrong with you? And then they're like, I like the taste
It's like
better.
really fatty, and then
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh my god, I don't understand. Right,
And then a
God, you're gonna
Diet
get on Coke now. I was a die-hard Coke fan for so many years. Only very recently that I've kind of got. I'll have the odd glass of Coke, but I can't drink more than like one glass because it just dries my mouth out now, and it just doesn't taste the same.
Are we already on the dieting segment of the podcast?
Okay, it's going to be a rant from me because I had to stop and audibly breathe in. The people that say that Diet Coke tastes better than Coke, I don't understand that. And also, if you're gonna have a Coke, you're having a treat. Coke is a treat. It's not something you have like water. So, if you're gonna have a treat yourself. Don't half-ass it and then go, oh, it was only a Diet Coke, and I can also afford to have a burger as well then. That's so much worse.
Yeah. It's like
And that's my view on that.
it's one of the reasons I think I'm not sure if they still do it. For a while, McDonald's stopped serving salads because that's not their customer base. If people wanted to eat healthy, they wouldn't be going to fucking McDonald's.
Yeah.
We've kind of strayed from media here.
Yeah, sorry.
But
Pull back.
no, it's fine. The rant was it was related, and plus it was funny, so I let you go. But I just did one other thought that, and I know I expressed this after we saw the movie, but one thing that really struck me at the end was just how big their like prop budget was, because they
Yeah.
destroy something like 30 cars. They
Yeah.
demolish the front door to a building in Chicago. They have like all of these explosions and things getting blown apart. They're destroying parts of
Mm.
like the street. The budget they
Particularly
must have
like
had.
there's you can kind of divide the film because after that their big performance where they get the money
Yeah.
from the moment that's finished to the end of the film, it's like a different film.
That's
Uh,
actually that's a good point. Yeah.
and it does become a lot more. Don't get me wrong, it must have been pretty expensive them driving like the camper van and stuff into a lake.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you had to fish that out as well because they can't just leave a camper van upon the lake.
I don't know, there's a bookcase outside of my window sunken in the canal.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
It was the 80s.
Legally, um, I mean, is it illegal to? I
I
suppose it's
I
littering. I don't know if it's.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm fairly certain that it would be
It should
illegal to
be.
just leave it there. I don't know that for a fact though.
It was the old days. No, I'm sure.
I love how you can justify that though. It's like, yeah, it was the 80s.
Yeah, they didn't have Diet Coke. It's fine.
There was no Diet Coke yet. People were just a little bit more open. Like, yeah, just leave the camper van
Sensible.
sunk in the lake.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, but like the number of police cars, I think I've heard about it before because it's one of those stats that gets brought up quite often when the film is mentioned.
Hmm.
And I think they just went to all these like police auctions where obviously the police didn't need the cars anymore, so they were just selling them off super cheap.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
typically,
even the Dodge sedan that they ride around in, the Bluesmobile,
Hmm.
is an ex-cop car. So I'm guessing at some point someone was just like saw a golden opportunity of like 100 cop cars on
And-
sale for 10%, and like,
yeah, there was some police department out there that made out like bandits that day.
yeah. And there was so many different kinds of like there were sheriff's vehicles and
Well, I was saying that at the
State
end,
troopers.
like in the kind of penultimate scene of the movie, they've
Hmm.
got like army jeeps, they've got police
Yep.
cars, they've got SWAT vans,
Yep.
they've got helicopters.
they
Like
had tanks.
they had tanks, yeah, they had light tanks in the middle of
I like that.
Chicago.
How did they get like they would have had to cordon off so much because obviously all the car chases and
Hmm.
things, they would have had to cordon off streets and highways because there was someone like dual carriageways. Well, wait, do you have dual carriageways over there, or what do you call them? Highways.
Highways, yeah.
Okay, but it's not like the motorway. I don't know. I don't know enough about.
So there's highways. I don't know what actually. I'm not sure where the distinction starts. But typically in the U.S., when you're talking about a highway, you're talking about some kind of a divide between two roads going in opposite directions, like multi-lane.
Yeah,
But
You've got
when you
that
say
over-
when you say a motorway, I think you're talking about there's not really a divide. There's just a line down the middle, and the cars are going in opposite
Yeah.
directions, but they're high speed.
yeah. When I had a motorbike, I was on provisional license.
Mm.
I was allowed on dual carriageways, which is like 2 lanes going in one direction, 2 lanes going in the other.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there was a divide down the middle. I wasn't allowed on on motorways. Sorry.
Okay.
Whereas I think that's 3 lane.
I may have it reversed. So there's really no rhyme or reason to how many lanes there are in the U.S. Pretty much both of those things are called highways here.
Okay.
It's just there are the bigger highways. Oh no, there is a distinction. So the bigger highways, the ones you're talking about that you weren't allowed on, technically those are called interstates. Like these
Yeah.
giant highways that actually run between states. They have like there's literally either a giant like opening with grass in the middle between the two opposite directions of traffic, and or there's some kind of a concrete barricade.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Gotcha.
So this has become now we're now we're educating our audience now on the differences between driving laws in
Yeah.
the U.S. and the U.K.
Well, there's so many slight differences between the UK and America.
Yeah, I know. I've driven over there. It's interesting.
Yeah, you don't. It's a lot more dangerous, you say, because the roads are so.
Yeah, the
thin.
roads. Well, okay. So in my case, it was a problem because they gave me such a fucking massive car.
No, you went out to get a massive car. You cannot blame that on them.
They offered.
I remember you coming in call at one point and saying like, they've given me this like massive car, but I might soup it up to the next level just for that,
No,
just so that I could ride, in your words, a tank around the streets of
the
Bath.
UK. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was so just a little. Maybe I'll tell that story later in the third segment, but so
Yeah,
but to bring it back to this, so they destroyed a ton of cars, and they were older cars. I think at one point they say it was a 1964 sedan, and this movie was shot in 1980, so it was like a 16-year-old car. So they were destroying older cars, but still they destroyed a lot of them.
And the freaking shopping mall. I don't know if you forgot about that one.
This was at the beginning of the movie, right?
This is the first half. It was like literally where we cut afterwards.
Yeah, I
They
remember.
went through and like smashed up an entire shopping mall.
Well, they blew up a building with, right, with all the bricks.
Yeah.
Fucking Princess Leia shoots him with a rocket launcher.
Yeah, and later on she like, I said, I don't think that when she was using the C4, I don't think they actually showed the building exploding in that case.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back on it now. Do they actually show the whole building exploding, or is
So I
it just
think
like
they
a
just
cut?
showed the picture of like rubble and stuff falling, but no actual like buildings or the train around it, and then they're climbing up out of the rubble.
Yeah, out of the rubble
And they
afterwards.
look like real bricks as well. I mean, I could be wrong.
It didn't look like foam. That was the thing. It looked like they actually
No.
had piled bricks on top of them.
Like, yeah, they piled like this horrible building dust, I guess asbestos, and bricks on top of the actors, and then the actors were like, right, you gotta wait there for 15 seconds while the other two fuck off, and then you can stand up.
Yeah, well, you can tell like when
Damn.
that's one thing that I like about older movies, specifically in that kind of that early 80s kind of time frame, or even before that, because they had to be creative. They didn't have CGI, they didn't have all these special effects. They had to be creative with like how and sometimes they had to make compromises like that. We're gonna pile real bricks on you.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of something about that scene with the rocket launcher and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I lost it. Maybe I'll think of it again in a little bit. But
That was probably my least favorite part of it. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh,
I was just going to say that was my least favorite part of the film.
oh, I rememdered it. My favorite part of the film, and it was kind of a recurring theme, was whenever they were confronted by somebody telling them that they were on like a fool's errand, that they were being idiots or something like that. Dan Aykroyd would just like turn to the person, "We're on a mission from God."
Yeah. That just gets you past anything.
Every time, like when they're in the diner and you're not taking him out on some fucking fool's errand. He's not going on the road again. He'd be like, "Ma'am, we're on a mission from God." just every time, and it made me laugh every time he did it.
And the there's so many quotes, but yeah, when they're trying to find out where Murph and the magic tones are, they go up to that lady's house, and she's like, "Oh, do come in." And she's like,
Are
"Are you with the FBI?"
No,
"No,
we're
ma'am. We're musicians."
Yes. No, man, we're musicians. That's another one that made me laugh. Oh, and then when they go to the fancy restaurant and like the person's getting offended behind him and they're trying to convince the guy to come with him, he just goes around, puts like his arm around the guy's shoulder, and in like a fake Russian accent, "I want to buy your daughters. How much to buy your children?"
Yeah. Anyway, I could quote that film all day. Have you got another media?
I don't know. I'm having fun talking about this one, but yeah, let's
brilliant.
so this doesn't just become let's quote a movie for 25 minutes. Let's go on to something else. So are you familiar with the Stargate TV shows?
No, I know bits and bobs about the lore because it's featured in other games and stuff where it's like walk through gates and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it was a movie in 1990. This is the history real quick. It was a movie in 1994, and it was a decent sci-fi movie. in 1997 they adapted it to a TV show called Stargate SG-1, and it went for 10 seasons. Like, it was a pretty popular sci-fi show. They had a spin-off series called Stargate Atlantis, which went for 5 seasons.
That one where they were never sure whether there's like doppelganger aliens or something. Or am I just thinking of something completely
I don't
wrong?
think there were doppelganger aliens. The theme in the first show where there were these parasitic aliens called Goulds, and they would essentially infiltrate somebody's brain and then control them and like take them as a host.
Okay.
So that
I don't know.
yeah, so that was the first season. There were other aliens that showed up in the later series, and they end up with different. Oh, there were doppelganger things in the later seasons. These replicator like machine aliens that could like make themselves look like humans. But anyway, so that was that series. Then there was a spin-off, Stargate Atlantis, and there was a second spin-off that came out later, which is my personal favorite. Like, the original one is really good. It's a classic. If you like sci-fi series, it's a must-watch. But they came out, the third spin-off series, which only went for 2 seasons, Stargate Universe. It's a series that I've watched the first This is what I was talking about earlier when I said the first episode on the Blu-ray. It was a 3-parter. And they released an extended cut on the Blu-ray that had the complete first episode. I forgot to mute Discord again. There's going to be a bunch of beeps right there on the record.
Everyone, quick, check your Discord for messages.
I forget every single time. It's muted now. Anyway, so the extended cut actually goes through and it adds extra content. And because... So the theme of Stargate Universe is this group of people, due to an emergency, end up on a very ancient spaceship, millions of light years away from Earth, like several galaxies away from Earth, and they have no way to get back because the ship's old, it's kind of fallen apart, and it's kind of like that desert island kind of thing. You've got this group of people, not all of them are supposed to be there, and they have to kind of figure out how to survive, and there's obviously conflict within the group because there's no clear structure, this wasn't planned. And that's why I like the extended cut for the first episode, because it adds additional character development for some of the cast, because there's a lot of characters, and some of them don't really get characterized too well until like later episodes, but that initial extended cut adds more like valuable characterization to these people who are trapped on this ship. But the reason I bring it up here is I finally finished the series. I'd watched the first season a bunch. The second season, they didn't release a Blu-ray for, and they never did. I guess it wasn't as popular, so I never bought the DVD because I was hoping that they'd release like a complete Blu-ray, and they also had the second season on Amazon Prime. But again, fuck you, Amazon Prime. They took the series off Prime, so I couldn't watch it. Not only did they take it off Prime, I couldn't even buy it, because they said it's no longer available. They lost the license completely for some reason. So I had to buy the DVD. So anyway, it came, I watched it, I finally finished the series, and it ends on a cliffhanger because they didn't know that the series was going to end. But they did something I thought was brilliant. Because they knew they weren't going to get like a standalone movie, they knew they weren't going to get a new season, they released a comic book series that finishes and ties up all the remaining plot threads. And I'm in the middle of reading that right now. That was the other series I was going to talk about. Any initial thoughts on that kind of brief and a bit disjointed synopsis? Blue, did I lose you? Oh, I think I did. Hold on. I know, I realized what went wrong. I'm sorry, Blue. Give me 1 second. This is my fault that none of you can hear him right now. Technical difficulties right here. All right, they can hear you now, Blue.
Okay, cool. Did they catch that scream?
Scream? No.
Okay.
Is that what you were doing? Anyway, so like, yeah. Any thoughts on that kind of disjointed synopsis?
Yes. So 2 things. First of all, I've forgotten the first thing. Second thing, the when a story goes and gives more backstory to a character, I like it sometimes, but only if they do it with only like a couple of characters. So I know we bring it up quite often, but Bleach,
Yeah.
brilliant series, but a number of flashbacks, so frustrating. In the middle of like an intense, interesting combat where you're like, oh, I can't wait to see who wins. It's like watching a game of, well, I'd say like watching a game of football, but I don't like football. But watching an intense sports match, and you're rooting for your team, and then the freaking half-time ads come on, and they last half an hour.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, it's just really frustrating. And don't get me wrong, I would like to hear a bit of backstory, but I don't want full. I don't want too much backstory, and especially not if it's backstory that has happened prior to what you already know.
See, I
Because
think
that stuff's done.
I think this harkens back to something that we were talking about during one of the test case podcasts. We were talking about Count of Monte Cristo, the book, and the book for.
That wasn't a test case. That was last episode, guys.
Was it really last episode? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been a week. That's a long time for me. Anyway, so they. I think that is a good, like, a good bit of writing advice, at least to like modern audiences, is they can only handle so much characterization, because in those books, at least in Monte Cristo, like a new character shows up and it's like, this is the earl of this random place, and here's his peerage, and oh, by the way, and we're going to talk for like 18 paragraphs about, you know, his mother and his relationship with the court and all this other, and they do that for every character.
Yeah. This is before TV, though, where you could just see everything individually, like, bam.
It is.
Stories become a lot faster the moment you put them on TV, and so people have got a lot less patient over the years, I think.
That's true, and I think that's one of the reasons why those older books are more difficult to kind of get through for modern audiences. But when you're talking about like a TV show, I agree with you. You can characterize like 18 different characters and go deep into their backstory, but you have to do it over the course of time. It can't be like episode 1, let's characterize everyone.
Yeah.
It has to be episode 1, here are the key core characters, let's characterize, you know, A, B, and C. Episode 2, let's get a little bit more into D. Episode 3, maybe a little bit more into E and F. Like, pace the characterization.
Yeah.
And if executed correctly, I think that can be a very, very good way to do storytelling. Yeah.
The other point I was going to make about what you've been saying. Oh god, I forgot again.
Write it down next time.
Yeah. All right, I got my notes. Sorry, you just continue.
I'll fill. So there was. I'm going to completely switch topics while you think of this, and talk about a kind of a long-standing book series. And I'm less talking about the book series because we're talking about ways to do storytelling now. We've moved on to that, talking about the TV show. I've been reading the books from the Horus Heresy, which is a derivative of the Warhammer 40k universe. It takes place 10,000 years before the setting of Warhammer 40k, when, you know, humanity is spread across the stars. It's retaking old planets, and essentially a civil war starts between, you know, humanity.
I actually heard what's probably, so I'm not going to say what it is, a spoiler for Horus Heresy.
I've been trying
this morning.
It's so well established that there's spoilers everywhere, and they're dropped casually. I've been trying very hard to avoid most of them. But the reason I brought it up was less because of the story and more because of the way it's told in the books. Because there are something like 53 or 54 books in this series at this point. Obviously not all one author. They actually have... So they have...
They're not all Dan Abnett.
No. He tells like the first one, and I think like the 7th one or something like that.
Oh.
But you know, the other, they switch it out. There's a bunch of different authors, and they all have a kind of a different voice.
Mm. You know what you're getting with each one.
Sort of, and some only show up for one book. So you end up with a very different feel in a lot of books. Like the one I'm on right now feels more like a kind of a medieval fairy tale of a knight's quest almost. And then there was one I read earlier in the series which read more like a book about, espionage and intrigue. And there was another one. And so they all have different feels to them, and I think they executed it fairly well, because the one that felt like espionage and intrigue and like it really told that kind of story well was a book that focused on the Alpha Legion, which their specialty is subterfuge and deception and spycraft. The one that felt like a knight's quest was one that was actually written about a legion that started on a kind of a medieval planet. Their technology had regressed to the point where they were essentially living in a feudal society that also had machine guns, but still a feudal society.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try my damnedest not to suggest anything. All right, I'm gonna be very vague about it.
Okay.
Have you got to a point where the two leaders meet in combat?
No, I have not. Okay,
I will shut the fuck up. But when you do get to that point, which will probably be in like 50 books, so it's never going to happen. You tell me.
It's taken me 2 years to get through the first 10 books. I'm on either book 9 or 10 right now.
Man, I could catch up with you in that if that's the pace you're going.
Well, the thing is, I'm also reading other books at the same time. I'm a bit of a prolific reader. Right now, I'm in the middle of 3 books. They're all on my coffee table. That's kind of my relaxy sci-fi book. I've got a history book that I'm reading, and I've got a philosophy book that I'm reading. I also have an audio book that I'm in the middle of that I only listen to when I'm running.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to get back into, Audible and running. I can't concentrate on both at the same time. I don't like missing anything in a book, so I can't do something other than I have to focus on one. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so this is the last thing. We're coming to the end of the media segment now. Do you remember the point that you were going to make, or
no?
Okay, then we're gonna wrap it up here. I think I did have one more point. You were talking about running and reading, or running and listening to audiobooks. I've found that when I run, the way for me to get the best times and the best pace, the perfect thing for me to listen to is not music. It's not like maybe a podcast or something like that. Is the thing that I like to listen to the most, that I have the most success with, is just a boring, bland, slow-paced, monotone audiobook, like something on economics or history, because I find I keep a nice steady pace.
More like something that kind of seeps into you rather than is listened to.
It's something
how people put language lessons on while they sleep.
Yeah, it's like a calm ambiance.
Teach them how to speak French or some shit. Yeah, who knows? Does that actually work?
I'm not sure necessarily if it works, but personally, you know what? Let's save this conversation until segment 3, because that's our rambly segment.
Yeah. Okay.
So just to wrap this up, we did kind of get a little bit off in the weeds, but this is the end of segment 2, where we discuss different types of media. Today it was mostly talking about or quoting the Blues Brothers, but that's the type of media. If you're listening to this on a weekday, then you probably are going to be coming to the end of the segment. But if you're listening to it on a Saturday in the complete format, we'll only be gone for probably a few moments. Again, either way, thank you for listening, and hope you come back soon. All right, welcome back to segment 3 of episode, this is what we're talking about. The numbering system is fucked. This is segment 3 of episode 2 of the full podcast, but episode 5 overall because of the test cases. We need to
So
figure
just to
that out.
clarify, this will be the last segment for the people listening to the segments and listening to the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. I screwed that up last time. Yes. So if you are listening on Friday, then or to the individual segment, this is the third segment of the podcast. But if you're listening on Saturday to the entire thing, then this is also the last segment. As I stated last time, only to realize halfway through the statement that it was redundant. This is the last segment, no matter what. So the idea behind this segment, where the first two we have some sort of a structure to it, the last one is going to be sort of a wild card. Sometimes we'll have ideas for what to do on here. We actually had a potential one earlier in segment 1. If you hadn't heard it, yes, we did, about certain audiobooks. Potentially listening to...
Oh, right, yes, that one. Yes.
But today, it's kind of just free form because we didn't have anything in particular planned for this segment. So I wanted to open up just by coming back to a story that I kind of started telling during one of the earlier segments that didn't really... It wasn't really relevant then, but I don't want to just kind of leave it out in the ether. And that's concerning the first time I came to the UK and had that ridiculous car. So anyone who has been to the UK or has seen pictures of its roads knows that it's a bit of a squeeze. Smaller roads, especially when you're in maybe the countryside. Well, actually, even in the city, it's terrible. I'm glad I didn't try to drive in London, but they gave me
So in the countryside around here, you get far higher speed limits. So people fucking fly down the country lane, and there are like there's so many blind corners. It's dangerous.
I had so much fun doing that too. When I drove out to Stonehenge with with Raymond, and it was just like 2 lanes, tiny roads, nothing but grass on either side, hilly terrain, 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. I had so much fun driving on that road. Raymond nearly shat himself. But that's neither here nor there. So what I kind of alluded to and you were making fun of me for is I wasn't given this car. When I originally booked this trip to take like a vacation over there, I was going to just book like a normal hatchback, small car for the whole time I was there. Realized I only needed the car for basically a day and a half total. And so the rest of the time when I was going to be in London, I didn't need the car. I didn't want the car because I would have had to drive in London. Glad I didn't do that. But when I rebooked the car to get the larger, or to get the to say I only want a few days, and they were going to give me my money back, they're like, oh, but you could upgrade to a better car and you'd still get some money back. And they didn't tell me what the better car was. They just said a better car. And so I was like, oh yeah, sure, do that.
That's how you pitch a sale to an American.
I was like, yeah, sure, do that. And so I get there, and the car was so long, it didn't fit in almost every parking space. Like, there are hilarious pictures that came out of this where I've parked this car in a normal car park in the UK, and the back foot and a half of the car is sticking out of the parking space.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Are you going to include a picture in the podcast this time? And are you actually going to remember to put it in this time?
I am looking at the timestamp right now, and I am noting it down, so I remember to put a picture of the car in there.
Yep.
But yeah, it was an interesting thing. But I didn't want to leave that story hanging because I know I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't actually want to go into that rant during that segment.
I mean, what's okay.
You know what? Actually, you know what would be a really fun? Unless you have something that you were about to say, I was going to say what would be a really fun improv theme for this segment 3 is UK and US differences.
Well, I was going to say, because the topic you started this with is actually kind of matches up pretty well with the general topic I had in mind, and that is world travel.
Okay, let's go for it.
And that's because earlier today, as you know, my brother and his my sister-in-law were over, and I don't think they've realized this quite, but every time they talk about Japan,
Yeah,
it makes me really want to go to Japan.
yeah. And
Like some of the stories that they came back with. What are you gonna say?
oh, I was just gonna say, and yeah, I was just there.
Ah, right, yeah. So I think the last time I was talking to them about it, they were talking about this is the main thing that stuck in my head. They were talking about a bar or set of bars, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
where it's like an all you can eat, but all you can drink. So you'd put in it was a pretty darn cheap price. I think it was, and it was like £7 for a man, and like £5 for a lady,
Hmm.
which is we won't get into that, but very interesting. If I wonder what if I like, and then stuffed some balls up my jersey, whether I could get away with it. No, no, cheapskate or anything, but like the idea of an hour of as many drinks as I want, and we're talking like spirits here. Oh, to me, I'm not an ex-alcoholic, but like I've had enough drinks in my time. That is just temptation beyond resistance. Like,
I,
oh,
I I would be curious to see if they put a limitation on what things. I guess if it's mixed drinks, it doesn't matter. That wouldn't be
mm.
maybe such a good deal for me because I actually like, I
Yeah,
like I like
go
me
on.
my whiskeys and I like them to be like the nicer varieties, like a Scotch or something like that, and not like not like a cheap Scotch.
I do too. It's just I find that the faster it's gonna
Imbibe.
sound really bad. The faster I drink, the more communicative and talkative and sociable I am. And so generally the first drink or two are down pretty fast. Not because I'm not purposefully thinking, oh, I've got to drink to be sociable at all. I'm quite a sociable person.
You're
But at least for someone in England I am.
yeah, that's saying
But
something.
because God, you're like ridiculously it's worrying how sociable you are. I don't understand it. It's a voodoo fucking magic. Um but yeah, like in an hour I reckon I could get through about if I was really putting my, nose to the grindstone, I could get through probably six rums, obviously being doubles, so about 12 shots, maybe five. I don't know. I reckon if I was pushing myself, I could get through a drink per 10 minutes, and that'd be me done for the rest of the night. I would just be happy as Larry for at least like an hour or two after that.
Yeah, yeah, you
Um,
get yourself set up, and that. But I mean,
for like £6 or £7, I'm like, yeah.
to be fair, that is a very that's a pretty incredible rate if you're talking about because if you go out to like a restaurant or a bar here, the equivalent of that is something like $9 or $10. You're maybe gonna get like two beers. And that's it, or one drink that has some kind of a spirit in it. In my case, if I was going to get a whiskey rocks at a bar,
Yeah,
that's gonna run me at least like $10 in the U.S.
right.
At least for a decent,
Yeah, because you
decent
drink
whiskey.
very differently. It's like the whole culture of bars over there is pretty different to how it is here, like between America and the UK.
That I did notice
Um,
that going over there.
yeah, the whole tab system, that's pretty alien to us over here. Maybe we just don't trust people enough over here.
That was
But
something. Yeah, I noticed that going to Europe too. Like not just the UK,
mm,
but going to mainland Europe. It was like the drinks are paid for up front.
yeah. And it's not like you can take them out of the building. You have to drink your drinks inside the building. So it's not like you can just pay and fuck off out the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure. Because my memory is bad. If I were to go over to America now, because I haven't been brought up in that manner of like
Mm.
paying tab, I would be afraid that I'd just be like, I already paid for my drink. I finished it. I'm gonna head
It's
off.
there'd be people who remind you. There are people because
I'm sure the bouncer would after
so
a knuckle sandwich.
we should clarify that that's specifically talking about getting drinks at bars. If you go into a restaurant, there still is a tab over there, right? Like you'd still get your bill at the end of the meal, correct?
Yeah, you still get it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to verify that. That's how I remembered it, but I wanted to be sure. Um,
oh god, you and your mustard habits. But we'll get into that in a minute.
I love mustard, but yeah, go on.
Oh no! I thought you were going on with the point that you were making.
Oh no, that was the end of it. Yeah, that is a very big difference here. Like everything here is like a tab. There's very few places I can think of like fast food or like a sub shop or a sandwich place or like a cafe.
Mm.
Those places you might pay up front. If you're just gonna like go up to the counter, buy something, and then go and sit down in the area. That is there are places like that, but they're very specific kinds of places. You go to a bar, you go to a restaurant, something, any place that it's like, sit down and eat kind of place or sit down and drink. Yeah, you get a tab at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that would make people. If you have a tab at the end, I feel like that would make people drink less because they're constantly thinking, "All right, this total is going up every time." In England, you pay straight over the bar. Like you could forget
money.
how much you paid before you go back to your table.
The money's already gone.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. It's not your problem anymore.
Well,
Yeah, I feel like if I cause on my worst drinking nights, I could spend over £100.
whew.
And so that's like $120
To be fair,
on one night of drinking.
to be fair, when I was in Japan, they had the hotel I was staying at, beautiful hotel. It was in the middle of Tokyo in Shinjuku, and they had a bar on the rooftop. Well, it was like a lounge, and you could order drinks up there. I spent about, what is it, like 10,000 yen, which is about about $90. But that was that was 3 drinks because I was ordering like this,
Jesus.
it was a nice whiskey, and also there was a huge markup because it was downtown Tokyo in a fancy hotel.
Yeah.
So
No.
there's that level of clarification.
The most expensive drinks I've bought, the one local to me, the most expensive drink I've bought has been a zombie, which I'm sure I've talked to you about this before.
You haven't actually. That's a drink that there's actually a girl I dated that I think drank those. Like that was her favorite mix.
Really? That's a dangerous girl. So a zombie is I think it's 3 or 4 different kinds of rum with a bit of fruit juices and stuff like that. It's very, very strong. And in the city that I live in, there's about. I actually on one night I found 3 different places that serve them. Other than that, I can't find them. It's very rare to come across them. And they all taste slightly different. I think there is an official recipe somewhere, but
Yeah.
yes, it's a very strong drink. Costs about £10. So that's $12.
Yeah. Thereabouts.
But probably for alcohol to money straight amount, the most expensive drink I've definitely had is in London.
Oh my god.
I was just in a bar with a friend who lived in London, and I ordered a drink. And where I lived at the time, in Bournemouth, you would get a pitcher. So that's like what, 4 pints or something.
Yeah. Thereabouts.
For like £6-7, and it was like Curacao and lemonade, and it was a fairly strong cocktail as far as they go, but it wasn't strong. I would literally hold it by the pitcher and drink it straight from the pitcher.
I remember you did that when we came to visit you down in that area.
Yeah. So I was used to this being like £7 for a pitcher. And I was in London. I saw a drink that I recognized. I said, "Okay, I'll have that." They put this tiny little freaking like whiskey glass on the table with like a third of a pint or something of this stuff in it. It's the exact same stuff, and it cost £8.
I feel something that needs to be clarified here. By the way, you're talking about pints. This is another cultural difference here.
Yeah.
A U.S. pint is 16 ounces. A British pint is 20 ounces.
Oh.
Yeah. Your pints are actually 25% bigger than
we
ours.
get more out of a pint.
That's why I never understood what. I remember somebody talking about hating how they couldn't get a proper pint in the U.S. and I never understood it until I went over there. It was like, these beers seem bigger.
Man, maybe that's why we're such alcoholics over here. I say it like I'm. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
what was something you were saying in that sentence reminded me of another. This has become,
it's just
cultural.
too easy over here to get drink. I think because especially because the drinking age in America is 21.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Over here it's 18.
Isn't it
Um,
16 for some things?
it's 16 if you're at a restaurant and your
Yeah.
parents are there. I think.
That's what I thought. So that's another like little bit of a misconception in the U.S. is it is 21, but that's to the universal one is you cannot buy liquor yourself if you are under the age of 21. But there are some states that allow like that at restaurants. If you're 18, you're with like family or something like that. It can be like 18, and you can buy like beer or wine. Or there are other states. I think it's Colorado if you are 16 or above and at culinary school you're allowed to drink wine.
Yeah.
There's little nuances there. It's 21, but not a lot of people in the US know there are exceptions to the rule. But yeah, either way, it's a very different largely because of the history of prohibition. The US has a very different relationship to alcohol than a lot of Europe.
Yeah.
I think the only countries on Earth that have more restrictive alcohol laws than us are in the Middle East.
Right.
I think they're the ones that do allow alcohol also have the age of 21. But across the rest of the world, I think Japan is close.
They have some quite dubious laws in the Middle East.
Well, yeah. Let's not get into geopolitics. But Japan.
I mean, this is meant to be about travel, and it's turned into alcohol talk. I feel like this happens every week. We end up talking about alcohol. We used to have a dedicated freaking alcohol segment.
Well,
But not
and,
today.
Yeah, I know. That was one thing that we did discuss, and I'll bring this up again. I think I mentioned it in one of the earlier segments. An idea we had for this third segment was doing like a tasting of some kind of alcohol and then just kind of discussing. But I think it's because it's something that both of us actually are fairly passionate about. We have tastes regarding it. When we were talking about dieting and cooking in one of the other episodes, I was mentioning that like I had a coworker who was really into like having the best artisanal spices. Yeah, notes of just like they loved this particular kind of spice, and their food just wasn't right without it. Me, I don't have that kind of a palate, so I don't care. But I'm very particular about like the whiskey I drink. I want it to be like I have my favorite whiskeys are the really smoky, peaty Islay Scotches because they have a very rich flavor and they're bitter. They have this warm harshness to them that I really like.
Kaiser, save it. Control your urge.
What, save this for a future podcast? Is that what you're talking
Save
about?
it for having the alcohol conversations.
Yeah. Well, going back to the world travel then, like another concept. We were talking about Japan, and you kind of got off talking about that bar that your brother had gone to. I never found somewhere like that, but I found two other things. One was that, and I'm not sure if this is everyone, but they had a whiskey bar in the hotel, a whiskey and cigar lounge they called it, and Japan still allows
where? Japan.
Japan, yeah, Japan still allows indoor smoking in most places, like most bars. They don't in restaurants anymore. So, but actually, some restaurants they do too. I went to a restaurant for lunch one day when I was there, and they had ashtrays where there was a dude that was playing Pokemon Go in the corner while smoking and drinking a beer.
That's such a... What demographic is that?
I don't know, but that was what I saw for lunch. But then, like, the hotel, like, they a whiskey and cigar lounge they had there. I went down there. I was reading a book and having a whiskey. The bar actually had a lowered floor, so no matter where you were sitting, like you were sitting low to the ground, but the bartender always was below your head height.
Right.
Like they were even lower to the ground. And I'm not sure if that was on purpose. Like there's a lot of cultural, like Japan was one of the first places I went to where I seriously noticed like cultural differences.
Well, one of the big things about Japan, which a strong part of the reason why everyone in our groups kind of talk about it so much is that it's such a leading figure in the gaming and anime industry, and in the merchandise industry. Like I can't imagine I can't think of any other place on the planet that has
That kind of
Hello
influence.
Kitty plastered all over the front of its storefronts. My brother showed me a picture today of a storefront which was literally the whole storefront was Hello Kitty's face.
God, I went to, when I was over there. I went to Akibahara for a bit, which is supposed to be like kind of the nerd capital of Tokyo. I was
Right.
embarrassed getting off the train. Like there were,
Yeah.
there
Oh,
was
you
a
said about the things on the skyscrapers, didn't you?
there was a skyscraper that like from top to I say skyscraper it was probably only about 10 to 20 stories, but
Okay.
it just a giant anime girl in a miniskirt plastered across the side of the skyscraper. And
Yeah.
just like I was embarrassed walking down the street. I'm like, holy shit, this is too nerdy for even me.
Hmm.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, it's
something I
very different
sorry.
cultural feel when you go over there.
Yeah. Something something he also mentioned though was that sorry, it's because this is fresh in my mind that I'm talking about this so much.
No, it's
Uh,
fine. This is where we just talk.
One thing that I brought up before the podcast, and I said I'll kind of save it for
Mm.
then, was a store called Super Potato,
Oh yeah.
which is a really weird name for a store, but maybe it's like it sounds better in Japanese or something. I don't know.
What?
Super Potato. But it's a store dedicated to retro games and things.
Oh.
And apparently he went in there and jokingly was like, "I wonder if they have this game that was not actually released in England at all." And they had it. It was a GameCube game, which yeah, it wasn't sold at all in England. I don't know what reason for. Uh, and so it's like some kind of super limited edition thing that they just had. And so I'm curious about like what all the other games that because you hear a lot about games that come out in Japan but nowhere else, and particularly older games. There's more. There's that added thing of you remember probably some aspect of it when you were growing up, played a similar game to it, and you're like, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Like the original Pokemon games, for example, they probably have all of the original Pokemon games
I
that already sold out.
I don't remember if I told you this story or not, but I definitely haven't told it on the podcast. So I played a lot of the Pokemon games. I loved the Game Boy and the DS Pokemon games. I was like they were going to release Pokemon Black and White, but they weren't going to release them in the U.S. until like 2010. This was probably like 2008 or 2009. They'd already been released in Japan, but it was going to be another year till they come out in the U.S.
Yeah.
I managed to get my hands on the Japanese Pokemon White or Black, I don't remember which one, and I played through the entire game in Japanese. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I couldn't read anything.
It's
But
like Skyrim. You don't need to read it. You just need to go bonk the thing on the head.
well, when somebody tells you to get a certain item, you kind of need to know what that item
Oh.
is. So
Well.
there was a little bit of stumbling where I tried to figure it out, but I played through the whole game in that way.
Yeah. There aren't many fetch quests in that game. It's mostly just go to gym, fight
Yeah.
through the wild, go to gym,
Yeah,
fight Final
catch
Four.
this critter, train them, and then fight them against this
Yeah.
guy's critters.
Teabag Brock, all the important achievements.
Oh, Brock. Did he ever end up, finding true love, or did he just keep hitting on every woman he saw?
I didn't really watch the Pokemon TV series.
Neither do I. I haven't watched it
I
since
didn't-
I was like 10.
Have that channel as a kid. Yeah, we had CBBC, but that was about it when I was young.
God.
Didn't
All right.
have the Disney Channel.
So we're coming up, not on the end here. We're about 6 or 7 minutes away from where I think we should probably finish. Let's
Okay.
try to finish strong. Find a topic, something that we can talk about. Something maybe story, maybe something that can bring us home. You got any ideas?
There is a game that was suggested to me, and I mean, when I give you the synopsis of it, you can decide whether it's good enough or not.
Mm.
Which was described as Guild Wars, if you remember what that game is
Yeah, I played it.
like.
Yeah, Guild Wars, by
Uh,
the way, being an MMO, a free-to-play MMO, kind of medieval themed, but with dragons.
yeah. So Guild Wars, but imagine if it were an anime. So if you're in a town or city, there's people budging everywhere, as you get with any MMO. The
Yeah.
moment you go out into the wild, unless you're with a party, you don't see any other people. Uh, that's coming out relatively soon. I've suggested to try that out.
Interesting. I mean,
Uh,
MMOs have always been well. That's something I can kind of go on. MMOs have always been kind of hit or miss for me. I can only
yeah.
think of two MMOs that I ever played enough to make it to late game.
Okay.
One was Fantasy Star Online. No, sorry, Fantasy Star Universe. Fantasy Star Online was an early MMO for the PC and the Dreamcast that was
Mm.
later re-released for the Xbox. I played that a decent amount, but Fantasy Star Universe was out for the Xbox 360, um, and it was again like a kind of a light MMO. It was a console MMO, but me and my high school friends played it all the time. We played it all the way to late game, had multiple characters, really got into the game. The other one was Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that one I only played for so long because I was really into the KOTOR games, Knights of the Old Republic, the single player ones. And this
Mm.
was kind of a soft continuation of those games, even though it was set about 300 years after the second one. And I mostly played it solo. Like, I didn't join guilds or clans or anything, but I played through it, and I enjoyed the story enough to keep me going through all the grind and whatnot in that game. So
Yeah.
when I hear like brand new MMO and it's along these sorts of lines, except it's this, it just MMOs need to have a certain thing to kind of hook me in. I'm trying to get into ESO with you guys, Elder Scrolls Online, and the only
Yeah.
reason I think I probably could get into it is because I really loved Oblivion and Morrowind and Skyrim. So
Mm.
I could probably get into that.
It's Elder Scrolls is a game that as you've seen, I've played a lot. I don't think I would recommend it to anyone though. I feel like the quest. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm one of these terrible people who skips dialogue because there are so many. I've been playing that game like try hard levels of just mashing through the text, and there is a lot of text just to get the actual gameplay. And I've been doing that for like 2 weeks now. No, more than 2 weeks. It's been almost a month. Jesus.
Yeah, we've been playing it for a
And
while.
I am only about a quarter of the way through quest, and that's only like the main story quest. There's so many side quests and other things you can do. So it really is a massive, I don't say waste of time, but a waste of time. I I don't really play MMOs. I never played World of Warcraft, which was a big one back in the day. I was always a RuneScape. Is RuneScape an MMO?
I think by the strictest definition, it probably is.
Right. I don't really classify it. It's completely different to any other MMO you really see out there. Um, and the only real MMO I've played previously is Guild Wars, and that was when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Which
RuneScape's a game that I don't really know anything about because the only thing I really know about it is people I didn't like in high school played it. And so that kind of poisoned the game for me, so I never even
Yeah.
tried it.
It's something that you had to play as a kid if you want to enjoy it now. I think
Yeah.
you got. I love the old graphics, the really low polygon count graphics. I think it's iconic. But if I were coming into it in this day and age, I would be like, wow, that looks awful. Also, I don't understand any of the things because there are so much like playing League of Legends. If you started playing it early on, you got to know it, and as it progressed, you'd learn new things slowly as it
Yeah.
released. Coming into it these days, I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Everyone else in the game knows exactly what they're doing. I feel like that's the same with RuneScape. There are so many new things in RuneScape that a new player would be absolutely boggled by what they think they want to do and how they would go about doing it. Like, even I've got to look up wikis of every quest.
That is the problem with coming into a game late in its life cycle. Is you
Yeah.
like we're talking specific like live service kind of games.
Mm.
You get in there and
Ones
there's
that
already
update
this.
every month or so.
Yeah, there's already this established meta. There's already all these characters that everyone else seems to know, and
Yeah.
you're playing catch-up ball. You have to really put in the hours to catch up. And as a kid, I probably would have been able to do that. As an adult, I'm like, I don't have time for this shit.
Right. Like that's part of the reason I don't do PvP on Elder Scrolls is because people will kick my ass in 2 hits because they've researched the perfect way to ambush someone, and I don't. I just want to do PvE. I just want to fight computer generated enemies that are matched to my level, so I can feel good when I get a kill. I will never get a kill in PvP.
To be fair, I played ESO on the Xbox when it first came out, and I did the PvP back then. I still like barely got anything done. It was a clusterfuck. But
Yeah, it was not great.
I don't know. We're getting off in the weeds. We're talking about MMOs there at the end. They're kind of like they're a taste, an acquired taste. Some of them really hit people. Some of them don't. But either way, we're coming up on the end here. We've actually managed to keep ourselves close to the time on every single segment today. I think this is a sign. We rambled a little bit more than usual, but this is, I think, a sign that we're maybe becoming a little bit more professional. You think so?
We are the ramblers. Every single topic goes off into some weird category eventually.
But that's half the fun. If that's something you like, then hey, keep listening because it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
All right, gonna do a quick outro here. Any final thoughts, Blue, before I close things out?
Well, I mean, just kind of a question to everyone listening, if you are listening. Every time we hear feedback on this kind of stuff, we love to hear it. We love doing this anyway. We just chat shit all the time. If people do have any ideas, particularly around names for the show and possible segments that you want to see in the future, we would love to hear that.
Yeah, any feedback.
Otherwise, we'll just
welcome.
ramble like we have been doing.
Which, again, if you enjoy that, we're going to keep going. That's at least going to be part of the podcast. I don't think Topics is going anywhere. I think that's our most comfortable segment. But yeah,
if you want to be like Scott and just be like, no, that's a terrible fucking idea. Don't do that. Sorry, Scott. I love you, dude. Tell us as well, because it's interesting.
Any feedback we get is welcome, and we will do our best to keep improving this thing in the way that people who listen to this want it to be improved.
Unless we don't like your ideas, in which case, fuck them. But, you know.
All right. Well, that's that. This brings us to the end of the third and final segment. Whether or not you're listening on Friday or Saturday, this is the end of the podcast. I got it right that time.
Yay.
Thank you again for listening. If indeed you have listened to this all the way to the end of the podcast, we greatly appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Because, dear God, how did you tolerate this? We'll be back again next week with another one of these. So, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.